Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsea. If you like this video, please let me know by giving it a thumbs up or commenting below. If you want to see more of my videos, press the subscribe button and click on the bell for notifications. If you need any Stampin' Up! Products to make this card, you can visit my online store and the link is in the description box below. When you purchase Stampin' Up! Products through me, you can earn free products. Check out my current customer appreciation products on my blog. The link is listed below in the description. So the other day I was on Instagram and I ran across this really great image of a quilt / pillow. And I'll go ahead and post those images here. And I really loved the pattern that was created by using those strips of fabric. And so that inspired me to use the strips of my cardstock to create this card. And so today I wanted to show you how I went about doing that so that you can create a similar card. So I have a really hard time throwing away my scraps after I've made a project. And so I usually will keep them in Ziploc baggies like this one or larger ones. And lately I've just been keeping them in the cardstock package so that those colors all stay together. So what you're going to need for this card, you're going to need 4 or 5 different colors, and you're going to want to have some strips. Now they can be any size. So here I have some 1/2-inch strips as well as 1 inch. You are going to want a longer piece, so I cannot use something like that, but maybe something like this, and then I can just cut that down. So you'll want to have 4 or 5 strips from each color. So this one is crumb cake, and I have a lot of 1/2-inch strips here. So I'm just going to kind of grab some of those. I want them to be on the longer side, so about 8.5 inches or so. So I've grabbed some of those. And then this is Bumblebee. And since this is a newer color, I don't have as many pieces. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab this long one, and then I'll cut that down into strips. And the same here with this Just Jade. I've got 3 or 4 pieces that are about 11 inches long. So again, you're going to want to keep them long, so between the 8.5 to 11 inches. So you're going to grab your paper cutter, and you're going to take each strip and cut them. Now it doesn't need to be cut perfectly, and actually if you have a slight angle to them, then it's a little bit more fun. So just go ahead and cut them down. So here I've cut it at an angle, and you're just going to keep doing that for all your colors. So for my Bumblebee piece, because it's wider, I'm just going to hold it and just kind of trim it at some different angles. And so I can get 4 or 5 pieces from this one. Okay, so I've got those strips there. Then if my pieces are 1/2 inch or smaller, I am not going to trim that. So these crumb cake and some of the Calypso Coral, I'm not going to trim. And then this is an 8.5 inch piece, and I am going to go ahead and trim off some of these pieces just so that we have some that are angled, and I have some more options so I can make lots of cards. Okay, and then you're going to need a card base, and I'm going to use this very vanilla thick cardstock, and I've actually cut it so that it's so it opens from the bottom and the hinge is at the top of the card. And so I have a piece that is 4¼ inches wide by 11 inches long and scored at 5.5 inches. And then you'll need some coordinating scrap paper in that same neutral color for stamping. So for my original card, I wanted it to be kind of a summery card. And so the colors I've used are Melon Mambo, Crushed Curry, Old Olive, Bermuda Bay, and Smoky Slate. So just in case you want to create a more summer card. So for the card I'm creating with you today, I wanted to do something with a little more of a fall feeling. So this is just a piece of type paper, copy paper. It's a full sheet, and I'm just going to cut it in half at 5.5 inches. And we're going to be gluing our strips onto this paper. So you could use either type of adhesive. I'm going to stick with the liquid glue. It just gives me a little bit of a stronger bond, and it's a little faster. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a pattern, and it could be, you know, any pattern. So I really am loving the way it's laying out now. So I think I'm going to start with a Just Jade piece, and you're going to add it to your copy paper, and you're just going to try and fill up your copy paper. So this one is 11 inches and my copy paper only goes to 8.5. So I don't need to add adhesive all the way across the whole strip. And so I'm just going to do enough that sits on the paper, and then I'm just going to tear off the top. Just as long as you don't get too far down, you'll be fine. Then you'll need a bone folder to just smooth out that glue, and then you can go right to the next color. So we'll go to yellow, and again, this is a little longer. So this one has a slight angle to it. You can see that it's wider here and shorter here. So when I'm adding those, I want to flip-flop the short angle to the wide angle. So this was the shorter or thinner side, and so now I'm adding the thick side to that, to this area on my copy paper. And again, you don't have to do the whole thing if you're going to be removing some. Place it down, and then you can just tear it at the end and throw away the extra piece. We will be trimming this, so it doesn't need to be perfect. We do want our pieces right up against each other, however. So if you didn't get that right next to it, then just lift it or slide it over, and then use a bone folder to smooth everything out. That's another reason why I like using liquid glue, is because then I can manipulate that piece a little bit more. Okay. So go ahead and add another color. And make sure it all matches. And then remove any extra pieces and fold that down or smooth that down. So some of these Calypso coral pieces are straight, like this crumb cake. And so I wanted to find one that has an angle to it. And so I'm going to go ahead and add this one. And again, you can use any colors and create any pattern here that you want. Slide it up, and then make sure it's all nice and tight. Okay, and then we're just going to continue this pattern all the way across our card. Okay, so now we have finished creating that pattern with our strips. And so we're going to now trim it to fit our card. So the fun thing about this pattern is that you have stripes that are going both directions. You have some that are going horizontal, and then you have some that are going vertical. Now the majority of the stripes are going to go vertical on your card, and then you're going to go ahead and fill in that gap with the stripes that are going horizontal. So the first thing you want to do is trim your paper down a little bit. so everything is nice and even. We did have, okay, so this side, I was really wanting to get one last calypso coral in here to complete the pattern. So this is actually the side I'm going to use as a guide. So it might make things a little bit more crooked, but that's the one I want to keep. And then I don't mind trimming down this Just Jade piece. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to keep it, I don't want to go any smaller than 5 1/4. So I'm going to try to keep it right now at 5 and let's see, 3/8, and then trim it, and then go ahead and switch again. I know we've cut this, but you can see that it is now crooked because we're using the calypso coral as a guide. And then we'll just trim this one last time if we need to. Well, maybe we'll keep that one. No, I'll trim it. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and trim this off, and I am now cutting it to 5 1/4, so it's going to be fit on my card going the long way. Okay, so this is the direction that we want our card to go. I do have enough, so I did go 5 1/4 all the way down, which is the length of this part. So now you're just going to decide how much vertical cardstock you want to include in your card. So this one's just about 1/2 inch. I think I'm going to go a little bigger, maybe 1 inch, maybe 1 1/4 inch. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go 1 1/4 inch for my vertical side. So it's going to be on that side. And then this is a full 4 inches. And so I'm going to rotate this. And now I'm only going to cut, so I'm rotating it so it's vertical. And so now I'm going to remove 1 1/4 inch from 4 inches. So it's going to be 2 3/4. And then I'm going to cut again. So you can see how it's starting to come together. And then I'm going to cut at 5 1/4 to get the length. So like that. And then you could use this for another card if you'd like, just adding it either the long, like vertically on your card, and then adding some interest there. Maybe we'll go ahead and do that as just a little bonus card. And it just really depends on if you have any of those extra pieces or not. Okay, so you can see how this card is going to come together now. Something like that. You could also rotate it depending on what color you want to have there in the middle. And now we're going to add this to our card base. So go ahead and fold along that score line. Use a bone folder to make a nice crease. And then you're going to add these pieces to your card base. So there is a border running around the outside edge. And you could use any adhesive here. And I am going to put it so the Just Jade is on the inside. And before I really press down, I'm just going to get an idea if that's giving me a nice even border, and it is. So I'm going to go ahead and just add this now. Okay, if you have any pieces that are pulling up a little bit, just add a little more liquid glue underneath them and press that down. Okay, so now we've got the base design for our card. So here you could simply just add a greeting, tie a bow around the card base, and you could be done. However, I wanted to add a little bit more to the card, and so I grabbed the Love of Leaf stamp set. This is a really fun one, and it's new in the holiday mini catalog. And I wanted to play around with these fall colors. So this one was more of my summer card, but we're just going to do the same idea, but with the Love of Leaves stamp set. So one of the fun elements I have on the back of, in the background for this card is this Versamark and clear embossing element. And so for this one, I thought we could use this smaller leaf here to create that element. Okay, so I have that on my clear block. And for this element for your card, you're going to need Versamark and then something to remove any static or glue that might be sticking here. And then you'll need some clear embossing powder. So go ahead and you're going to open your Versamark and ink up your stamp. And then you're just going to randomly stamp this. Okay, I forgot to add the powder to my card. So this is just Embossing Buddy, and it is to remove static as well as any little spots that might keep or hold on to that embossing powder. And so I'm going to stamp this again in that same area, just kind of eyeballing it. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and just rotate my stamp, stamp again, kind of get a couple different stamps going on my card. Maybe something like that. And now you're going to take your clear embossing powder, and you can use a little plastic spoon or something to scoop that powder out and just apply it to those areas. Now normally I have no problem just dumping embossing powder on my card, but because this has so many little cracks for the embossing powder to get stuck in, we're just going to try and minimize how much powder we're adding. So then quickly dump that off and tap off any excess. And then you can see that it mostly has stuck to just those images. But if you do have any areas where it is that you don't want it, use a paintbrush to just gather up or to remove that powder. Now this one, the image is just a little blurry because I did double stamp it. So I'm just going to clean up a little bit over there. Okay, so now we're going to take our heat tool and we're going to heat up this clear embossing powder until it's shiny and clear. Okay, so there you can see the Versamark and the clear embossing powder and how it just helps create a fun background image to go along with your stripes. So now we're going to do a little stamping, and I just have some scrap papers here. And I have two, well, I've got one that's a little larger, so maybe I'll start with that one. And I'm going to stamp 2 leaves, and I'm going to do one in Calypso Coral and one in Bumblebee. And this is very vanilla cardstock. And when you stamp, you just want to make sure you have good pressure before you lift it up. And then I've got Calypso Coral. Okay, so now I'm ready to cut these leaves out. And they do have a coordinating die set, and it's called Stitch Leaves. And one of the things that I love about this set is that it comes with 2 dies for each image. So you'll see this is the image, and I have connected those dies with some washi tape. And so what it's going to do is it's going to cut out with this image here on the outside edge, but then it's going to create this really fun stitched pattern on the inside leaf area. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this over my stamped image, and I can still see between the two dies so that I can line things up nicely. And then I'm just going to add a little washi tape to hold that down, and then get the other image or die for my other image, and then line that up and adhere that. And then I can place those on my platform for my die cutting machine, and then place another clear plate on top, and then I can run this through my machine, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now you can see how easy that was to cut out, and that fun stitching on the inside of that stamped image. So now I'm just going to add these two images down here in the bottom right corner, something like that. I do want to add this with dimensionals, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Place some of these little minis just to hold that leaf in place. And this one I'm going to place right here on the right side. And this one I'm going to actually slide underneath and add on the left, and then this will be a little area for my greeting. And I wanted to stamp my greeting in Just Jade, and I do have some paper left over from stamping, so I'm just going to go ahead and use. So you can see that the outside stamp, or the outside of that die, makes this really cute stitching as well. So it's a really fun die to use for your stamped images, as well as to create a negative space. So for this, I wanted to use just the hello, and it's a nice skinny little image for my greeting. And I wanted to use the fun new banner punch. So this just creates multiple sizes, so you can go from 1 inch, 3/4 inches to a 1/2 inch on both different designs, and then you can create a fishtail or more of a pendant end to your strips. So I want to cut mine to, let's do 3/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to cut off a piece, and then I think I don't need anything larger than 2 inches for this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim that, and then I'll stamp first. So we're just going to stamp hello. So ink that up and stamp it in the center. You could use, of course, any greeting that you would like. And then we're going to punch this out. Now, when you have a strip that's kind of small like this, it's going to disappear inside that punch. So I have a little trick on how to punch little small strips like this. Okay, so there we go. So what you need is a Post-it. And so what that's going to do is it's going to hold on to your strip so that you can punch it out without needing to worry about it disappearing and going the wrong way. So because it's so small, it won't fit in the guides. So you actually need to turn it over and just eyeball where to punch. And you can see how cute that's going to be right there. And you can do the other side as well if you want, or you could just leave it flat. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. So just eyeball where, so you're trying to find the middle and line up that cut line at the top to the middle of your strip, like that. And you can see here on my other card that I used the other pendant side. So this side here to create that one. So you could add a little bit of ribbon to the back of your greeting. This is a really fun ribbon combo pack. You get this beautiful quilted ribbon in like a mint macaron color, and then this copper thin ribbon. And I think I'm just going to go with some of this quilted ribbon and add it just straight across. Maybe cut this side at an angle. And then I'll add that to the top of the ribbon. So to hold this ribbon down, I'm going to use some dimensionals. And what I'm going to do is just use this thicker edge along the side. I'm going to cut it with some paper snips in a couple different places, and then on the back of the ribbon. And I'm just using the side that kind of curls a little bit more as the back. I'm going to add those thicker pieces and maybe place one in the middle. And this will just give the ribbon a little bit of room to move around because it's on dimensionals. And I want it to kind of come a little low. And then you'll notice that this ribbon frays a little bit. And so you can either try to fight it by keeping it nice and clean, or you can just give into it a little bit. I'm going to just trim this side at an angle and then let that fray a little bit more. And then my hello will go right over that. Make sure that's nice and stuck there. And then I'm going to use some liquid adhesive to hold that down so that it can get inside the fibers of that ribbon. Right about there, I think. Okay, so that card is all done. Kind of brush off any little pieces that you might have. And you could really create this using any colors and any stamp set that you have to use up those little strips that come from your projects. Okay, so just as a side note, if you have any of those extra pieces, you could probably create a second card that's very similar. Let's just go ahead and measure this. This is, let me measure on this side. So this is 1 inch by 1 1/8 inch. So if you were to take that extra longer piece and trim off about the same size, so 1 1/8 inch for me, so depending on how it is for you, then you're going to have two pieces that you can put together to create a longer strip, and it's really close to being that same distance. So we could add this and then just trim off this little bit right here. So I'm just going to make a little marking with my fingernail, and I'm really probably just trimming off the smallest amount just to make sure that those edges are about the same. And this piece is pulling off, so I'm just going to add a little bit of liquid glue under here. Smooth that out. And now I can create a second card. So it's not going to be a full card front. So this is just another piece of vanilla cardstock that is cut and scored to be a card base. So this time we could create the opposite pattern and have the horizontal lines be on the right side. We can push it over to the left and have a gap here on the right. We could even push it over to the right or center it in the middle. Okay, so what I think I want to do is push it off to the left, and then we're going to trim off an edge of the top. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just going to add this to my card and just place that evenly so there's a nice even border on the top left and bottom. And then these pieces will just go up right next to it. Like that. This one I think is a little high. And if I'm careful, I can pull it off because I didn't push it on too much. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to take my paper trimmer and I'm going to open my card up and I'm going to trim so that there's about 1/8 of an inch or so of a border here. So I just eyeballed it and cut that off. So you can see that it just opens and there's just a little flap there. So here I could add another piece of cardstock, something like that, or I can just leave it open, which is I think how I'm going to do it, and just have it be a little unique fold there. Then I can add my leaves. I could do some extra stamping if I want. I think I'm just going to keep this one a little more simple just because we're showing you a bonus card here. And I can do my stamping on that extra strip that we had. I could even turn it, maybe that would look better. Let's turn it and do it vertical here. So I'm going to stamp my greeting and I'm just going to keep it the same. So we've got the hello. And I think I want it off-centered a little bit. So I'm just going to place it to the right. And then I will use that punch again with my Post-it card and just line that up on the back and punch it. And then I can just add that maybe with the other ribbon for this one. And probably just measure maybe about 9 inches or so and trim or cut. I've got a nice pair of fabric scissors. And then add some adhesive to the back. And that's just going to help the ribbon hold down. And then you're going to take this and I want it to go up that direction. So I'm going to angle it so that it hits that upper corner and then rotate it. I like to put my finger there and it just kind of helps create that loop size that I want. Put that one there in the middle, kind of create more of a bow shape. Open this up a little bit. So you can just play with it to get it to be how you want it to look. And then I'm going to add that. Let's add this with dimensionals. Well, no, I'm going to put that straight onto my card. Place it at a slight angle. And then this one I'll add with dimensionals. And I'm going to add some of this thick side, and that's going to help hold down my ribbon so it doesn't come off. And then just place that over this horizontal strip like that. And so now I've got a bonus card with any leftover pieces from our first card. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, like, and share. Visit creativechelsea.com for a free tutorial of the project and purchase the supplies needed. Have a creative day. Bye.